there was that moment backstage
Goldberg?
with Goldberg.
Well, Goldberg, I'll say this. And me and Goldberg have talked. I'm not going to say we've hashed everything out because I'm me and he's him, you know? And I'm not a huge fan of his work. That's it. I'm not a huge fan of his wrestling style per se. That's all I'm going to say. I think he's great at drawing money. I think he's great at sports entertaining. I think he's an awesome action star. I saw him play as Santa Claus in a horror movie. I told him all this. I like a bunch of stuff he do. I'm just not a fan of his work, you know, and that's that. Now, I think if we wrestled, I would want to do a couple things differently, and I think it could be better, but that's a whole different can of worms. But at the end of the day, me and Goldberg don't get along because I talked some trash about his wrestling. He didn't like it. He took it as disrespect. And I said it's not disrespectful because it's true. And then he didn't like that and told me how successful he's been. And I go, you'll be more successful than I'll probably ever be in my life. But nobody's ever going to tune back in to watch like a classic like Goldberg match. They might watch a Spear compilation because they're tight, jackhammer compilation. Cool, or maybe one or two matches. But you're not going back. You're not going back like you go back to watch Shawn Michaels versus Bret Hart in the Iron Man match. You know,
it's a different style of wrestler.
Or Shawn in the first ever ladder. Or I could keep continuing.
Sure.
You're not going to go back like that because he doesn't have any of those in his arsenal. But he's still one of the best of all time. And I'm not going to argue that. And I'd say that to his face now. And he knows that. We've said that.
He's certainly one of the best in WCW for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, when it comes to drawing and making money, which honestly, this is what the business is about, he does it probably better. He can still do it better than 90% of the people that do it today.
So you say all this stuff, but then the first time you meet him, there's a camera right there.
My buddy Giancarlo was following me, and he must have knew. He's like, you're going to run into Goldberg. But yeah, and the worst part is it looks like it's staged, but it's not. Like I was like reading a sign, and then like he's a pretty big dude, and he just like shoulder tackles me, and I'm just like, what? Oh, it's you. And like, I know you hate me because I talk all this trash.
Did you think he was going to punch you?
No, boy, if he did, I would have beat him up. So it wouldn't matter. He knows better, just like most people know better. And that's that. You know, it's just, but at the same time, I do respect Bill because he came up and said something. And like I said, he wasn't my bro. I thought honestly, it was just, and I think people don't realize two different eras of like combat athletes, two different eras of pro wrestling. I feel like 90s pro wrestling was like, oh, I'm going to rip your head off, right? And it worked, like at Goldberg. Now I feel like that works to an extent, but a guy like me works really well too. It's more realistic. And today, half the UFC fighters are like me, you know, because I am a former UFC fighter. They are like me.